Welcome back and welcome to part 2 of the episode where I am explaining to you all the different buttons that we can operate on this particular car. Now these buttons are the same that you find on 3 Series, 4 Series, 6 Series, 8 Series, as well as the X Series, which is X1, X2, X3. More particularly models which were developed between 2014 or maybe 2015 to 2018, because between 2019 up to now, BMW has transitioned to iDrive 7, and iDrive 7 comes with a complete interior. So today we're going to talk about the buttons we found inside the car. Their timestamps are in the description, so it's easier for you to navigate whichever particular parts you find interesting. All right, let's get to it. All right, I'm going to start with the buttons we found on the steering wheel. From left to right, we have this section here. This section here, it's comprised with the buttons for cruise control as well as the M buttons. On this particular model, this particular car, these M buttons are non-functional. There are a lot of people that I've seen are doing retrofit for them, so that's something I might look at in the near future. Before I go further explaining to you how to manipulate these buttons for cruise control, let me explain to you what a cruise control is. A cruise control is a system which allows you to lock in a certain speed so that the car will not go over or below that speed. These buttons are there to help you to get to that lock-in speed. So when you are on a highway or when you are driving and let's say you want to lock your speed to be at 40 miles an hour, doesn't go up or doesn't go down, you will start by pressing this button which looks like a clock. You press on that and there will be an indication on the dashboard that will indicate that the cruise control is activated but it's not yet set. In that case, once you know you are at 40 miles an hour, which is our desired speed, we click on set, or you press on set, then the cruise control mode is enabled and activated. Your car will drive at 40 miles an hour. Unless you press on the gas, then it will increase the speed. However, once you remove your feet on the gas, it's going to go back on 40 miles per hour. That's how it works. Then you have this knob at the middle, right at the middle. This one is used to increase or decrease the speed. So when you see that you are driving at a speed which is too slow, you can just jiggle around with this one. You go up or down to change the speed to go to a desired speed. One thing I noticed on this one is that when you are changing the speed, it's increments by 5. So if you are at 40, it's go to 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, and so forth. These M buttons are non-functional, but if you are on the M car, these buttons takes you to a different driving mode. So with people who are doing retrofit, these buttons can be set. Let's say M1 can be sport mode or M2 can be sport plus mode, depending how you have configured these buttons. The reset button is there to reset the cruise control mode. So let's say you were driving at 40 miles an hour and you press on the brake, the car will deactivate the cruise control. So if it was activated at 40 miles an hour, once you press on the gas, it's going to deactivate it. In that case, you press on reset to set back to activate the cruise control. That's what this button is for. In the middle, this button, self-explanatory. You press on that. There you go. Moving on to the right side of the steering wheel, you have this middle button over here. This one, it usually doesn't really work, to be honest with you. For me, I call it like an etiquette button, but it does work. It's jiggle around. When you are on the radio, you can move up and down on this one. It doesn't really do much, so I will not spend much time on this. You have this button which is to accept the call, cancel the call, etc., etc. All right, folks, moving on over here, we have this stick here. This stick also has a couple of buttons, and the way this stick operates, this knob at the middle, this one is to set the speed of the wipers. So it's not raining, I'm not going to turn that on, but it's there to set the speed of the wipers. You want it to work faster, slower, and so forth. It's up to you, to your desired speed. and we have this button over here. This button is there to turn on automatic mode of the wipers. This one you can also play it either up or down. It's going to activate the wipers. All right, moving on, we have two buttons at the back. So this button one, the red button, has a set to start or stop the engine. And we have this other button. This button is there to activate the on and off activity of the engine, meaning this car has a functionality where if you stop the car and you set the gear in neutral, the engine will go off. Once you engage the engine will start on again. That's what this is for. When the orange light is on, meaning this functionality is on. When it's off, meaning you turn off that functionality. Some other people completely disable it with Beamer code. Another tutorial on its own. I've covered almost every button we see right here in front of me, but let me go back a little bit on the left. There are buttons underneath here that I want to explain to you, and also going all the way to the door. Over here, this button is there to control the light activity. Right now it's set to automatic. If you set it to the middle, this one turns everything off. If you set it to the left, this is the parking light. You turn on the parking light. If you set it to far right, this one turns on the headlight. If you go in the middle, if you go far right, this one turns on the headlight. This button over here is there to turn on the fog light. And we have this knob over here which controls the ambient light intensity, either up, this one is there to control the ambient light intensity. You want it brighter or softer, it's up to you. You control it from here. Let's go to the door side. All right, over here we have these buttons on the door. This one is to control the driver side, and this one is to control the passenger side. We have these two buttons. This one, actually this assembly over here, this side, is to control the mirrors. So if this button is set toward the driver side to the left, is to control the left mirror. If you set it all the way far right, is to control the right mirror. And here you can navigate either, here you can set the position of the mirror. And this button over here, this one is to fold the mirrors. If I press it, it's going to fold the mirrors, and if I press it again, it's going to unfold the mirrors. Now, this button also set it like, this button also have a functionality. If I set it this way to the left side, when I set the car on reverse, it's going to set a position that I set on the right side mirror. It's going to position it where I want it to be when I reverse. Very handy. And these are the buttons we found on the driver side door. On the passenger side, we only have one button, which is to operate the window up and down. All right, moving on, we're going to talk about the buttons for climate and radio. All right, let's start with the radio buttons. This one is to turn on and off the radio. Starting with this button, this one is to turn the radio on and off. One thing you need to know about BMW is that the radio does not necessarily go off. You only mute it. It doesn't really go off. So to mute it, you press once and it's going to mute it. You will have an indication over there that the radio is muted. And it's also the volume. If you want to go higher or lower, this is where you control the volume as well. Now, these numbers are the ones which are tricky. If you have a CD, you can move to different tracks of the CD by pressing these numbers. However, these buttons are also set to configure a shortcut for your iDrive menu. What I mean by that, with your iDrive menu, you can create a shortcut for all these different buttons. For example, for me, I set this button to go to TPM reset. So if I press it, it takes me directly to the TPM status. So I would know if I want to reset it and so forth. I would just press once and go, and I would just press once and takes me there. Also, if you just slide your your finger like this. You really just slide it. You don't have to press. You just slide this between. It's going to show you what are the shortcuts you have set for these numbers. So if I press like this, pay attention over here, you will see that I have different menu configured for these numbers. For example, see, 1 is TPM pressure sensor, 4 is trip computer. So if I press on 4, it takes me to trip computer and gives me a stat of my trips. Very handy. Now, how do you set those numbers? To set those numbers or to set those shortcuts to take you to the iDrive menu, what you have to do is that you go to vehicle information and you go there, and from here, this is where you're going to configure the shortcut. So for example, my number 8 is empty for now. If I press and hold for, you see, long press to store, you see that? Long press to store to number 8. So you press and hold, and there you go. Now next time, if I just want to go there directly without using the iDrive knob, I will press the number 8 and it will take me to this one, and I will select which driving mode I want to select. Moving on this button here, and you have going left or right. This is just to seek either you have a CD that is playing, you want to go to the next one, you go this one, and you go to the previous one, you press on this one. And if you are on radio, you can also do the same thing. This one is to eject the CD. This one is to change between FM, AM, and satellite. This one is to go to auxiliary, which is external, or you go back to FM or radio. That's how you operate these buttons. Moving on down here, these are the climate control buttons. This one is to turn on the AC or to activate the AC. Actually, to turn on the AC, you can press any of these buttons. You can turn on the AC. For example, if I turn on the knob, it will activate the AC. Why it's not on? It's because my car is off. So I have to go to turn the car on, and I just turn this knob. It activates the AC. Pressing this will activate the AC. This, and this will activate the AC. That's how you turn on the AC. And definitely self-explanatory. Turn left or right, clockwise, counterclockwise, to change the temperature or the desired temperature that you want. And this one is to turn off the AC, and this one is to increase the intensity of the air that is flowing through the vent. This one is to turn on the heat of your seat, passenger and driver side. And we have this vent over here. This vent, I've turned it to the blue side. This is because I want cold air to come through. If I turn it that side, I want hot air to come through. Even if I set this AC to be on cold, if I turn this vent to red, it's going to push in hot air. That's something you need to be mindful of. This button is to turn on the hazard, and this one is to lock or unlock the car. This one is to adjust the vent. Same with here. And we also have the same button on the passenger side as well as on the driver side. This one here. Now, this button over here, I'll put on the screen to know what this button does. It's very tricky. When you press to the right side, now the LED is on the right side. The description is on the screen, so you know what it does. And if it's on the A side, it's also going to tell you what this does. And if it's completely off, it also tells you what it does. Very tricky, this thing. It's very tricky. That's why I put this on the screen, so you know how this thing operates. And those are the functionality of these buttons we found on this car. Moving on, let's go to the iDrive buttons. Alright, moving on, this is the iDrive. I believe this is the iDrive 6, and it comes also in different flavors. For me, it's a very small knob, but the newer versions, I think that start from 2016, you have a bigger knob. Very straightforward. If you click on audio, this takes you to radio. If you click on menu, it takes you to the iDrive menu, the one that you see on the screen here. And if you click on tell, takes you directly to the phone book if you have synced your phone book from your phone. And we have this back button. This basically just to go back to the previous window where you were. And the option button takes you to the different option of the sub menu where you are. Now this knob, it also takes you up and to navigate up and down on the iDrive menu, and it's also a selector. So if you push on this, it's going to select a different option that you have on your screen. And this one only goes left and right, it doesn't go up and down. Moving on, we have these buttons over here. Now this one takes you to the different driving mode. What are those different driving mode? We have the sport mode, sport plus mode, and we have eco mode and comfort mode. Now what does this mode means exactly? They just change the driving dynamics of the car. You want it to be more aggressive or you want it to be conservative. If you have questions, leave in the comment and I will explain and do a better video explaining all these different kind of modes. We have this off button. This button is there to control the traction of the car if you want to activate it or deactivate it. It's usually good to use it when there is rain. You can use this button, or depending on which, or you are at the track, you can activate it and so forth, which is very handy. And this is just a stick shift. We have completed all the buttons on the center console. Now let's move on to accessory buttons. What are called accessory buttons are the buttons which I normally don't use that much. I will start with the buttons we found at the roof. So we have the SOS button. This button, you use it only in the case of emergency. Let's say you are drowning inside the river. You can press that, or you are lost and literally you are between life and death. This is the SOS button there. And you have this one to open the roof. So my car comes with a roof. This is to operate the roof. You can go up and down. And we have this button over here. This is not a button actually. It's just an information that tells you if the passenger airbag is on and off and so forth. And we have these buttons over here. These are the lights. Press this, it press it, it turns on this light. You press this, turns on this all of this light, and this one only turns on that light over there, and so forth and so on. All right, moving on, we have these buttons over here. So these buttons are the one you use to open the garage, so you can sync up to 3 garages. All right, up next at the back of the roof, we also have the buttons to operate the light. Now these lights do operate in sync with the one we have in front, but if someone wants to operate this independently, the buttons are there. Next up, we have this button over here. This button is there to lock the trunk. So right now it's set to unlock, meaning I can operate the trunk, open it, close it, and so forth. If I push it to the right, it's going to lock in the trunk, meaning regardless how I press the open button or whatever, it's not going to open the trunk. All right, next are the buttons that we found on the seat. We have the buttons to operate the seat. These are there to set the position of the seat, whichever desired position you want to set them. And we have these memory buttons. These are there to set the memory of whatever position you have set. So very handy if there are 2 drivers who drive this car or who drive a car. You can set them here. So driver 1 will set the memory on this button, and driver 2 we set the memory on number 2. Now to set the memory is that whatever position that you have set the seat and which is comfortable for you, you press these 2 at the same time. You press it and you wait for a couple of seconds. It's going to hold that position. Next time what you will do is you just come in, you press on 1 or 2, and the seat will automatically go to the desired position. So up on the seat there is this button. This is to go forward or back, and you also have the same button on the passenger side as well. This one is not a button, but I consider it as a button. This is a latch that you can fold the seat. That's how you fold the seat on this car. Very handy. Thank you for watching, and this marked the end of this series. If you missed part 1, click here, and if you want to know more about the channel, click here, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.